welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we are going to do the first book in a series, but it's one of those series where everything can be read as a standalone story. So, the series is called the Dare Valley series. It's by Ava Miles, and we are going to do just book one, which is called Nora Roberts' Land. We meet Meredith Hale, and she has been divorced for about a year. Now, her husband, who she calls Rick the Dick, his real name is Richard Somerville, but I'm sorry. I'm probably going to keep saying Rick the Dick because I think that's funny. So, he cheated on her. He states that his reason for doing so was because her idea of romance is based upon the Nora Roberts books. These romance books ruined their marriage. And I'm like, okay, that's a heck of a freaking excuse, but that's what he told her. So she has decided to, change her wardrobe, and she's bought all of this La Perla lingerie. She's got an alter ego named Divorcee Woman, and she's about getting her sexy back, getting her confidence back. And so her sister, whose name is Jillian, but they call her Jill, she's walking and she's talking with her sister, and she walks past a bookstore, and she has not purchased a Nora Roberts book for the past year. Okay, she's gone cold turkey, and because she really did believe what Rick had told her, that because of these books, this is why her marriage failed, right? This is why he made the decision to cheat. So her sister gets real on the phone, and her sister's like, that is not why he did what he did. You if you want to purchase a book, buy a book. You know what I mean? Like, don't sit up here and not buy the book because of something that liar is saying to you. You know what I mean? He's just trying to make you feel bad because he doesn't want to take responsibility for what he did. And her sister Jill has like this espresso, this coffee shop bar, and it's called Don't Soy With Me. It's a play on words. I think that is cute. Um and she also tells her that Jilly, is telling her, you need to come home, Meredith. You know? Meredith is a journalist. Their family owns this really prestigious newspaper back in Colorado. And their father had a heart attack not too long ago, and he needs to slow down. And the doctor is basically saying that if he doesn't, it's going to happen again. Now, their grandfather, he's there as well, but he's apparently healthy as a horse, so they're not worried about him. But Jill is saying, why not come back home, which is Dare Valley, and this way you're getting away from New York, because let's be honest, you don't have any real friends there. Apparently, in the divorce, she lost all the friendships, which means they were never real in the first place. Now, she's been in New York for quite some time. She went to college in New York. She went to Columbia. And again, once Richard was gone, Rick the Dick, once he was gone, so were the friendships. And she's been miserable. So her sister's like, come back home. This way you can help out with family, but it'll give you some distance as well. You know? And she's like, you know what? She's considering it. It does sound like a good idea. She does miss her family. So it does sound like a good idea at this point. Well, as she's in the bookstore, because she has decided, you know what, I am going to buy myself a Nora Roberts novel. Well, she sees a newspaper, this magazine, which shows that her ex has formed an exploratory committee for the Senate. So she's reading the article, and they had come to a verbal agreement that they would not discuss their divorce, okay, publicly. And here it is in the article, him speaking about the divorce. So basically, he says that it didn't work out because he had a higher calling to help fellow Americans, whereas his ex-wife had different ideas of a family. She wanted more of a traditional type of family, like the ones you would find in books. So clearly, he's making digs, and she's enraged. And the rage brings on a whole panic attack. Sister had to tell her to go sit down, put your head between your legs, breathe deep, because she was about to pass out. And as she's starting to come down head, she actually gets a phone call from Rick while she was on the phone with Jill. And she says, you know what, Jill, I'll call you back. This is Rick. Clicks over, and she was like, I thought we weren't going to talk about the divorce. He's like, oh, I was trying to warn you about the interview. And he was like, I mean, what could I say? They brought up the question, what could I say? I couldn't avoid it, right? Well, we come to find out this guy was paying for sex, and she busted his ass. So, this is what he doesn't want to get out. But I'm like, why would you even? This is why you also should have made sure that you were staying away from that subject, or you eased over it a certain way. You should have had a better answer than what you did, because the answer he did was poking at her, and he knows it. Now, he apparently paid her a really big settlement, and I guess he felt like that in itself should have been enough for her to want to discuss why really their family fell apart. Well, not family, I mean their marriage fell apart. She tells him, listen, I told you I didn't want anything from you. If that was supposed to be hush money, that didn't work. And she hangs up the phone. But now she has made a decision. She is going to go to Dare Valley, Colorado. She's going to work at her family's paper. And she currently has a job at the rival um, company, the rival newspaper of her ex-husband, because he owns a paper as well. He's over it. And she's going to ask for time off to go and help with her family. They love her at her job, so she can do it. So, and if they don't let her do it, honestly, because of her last name, she can't get a job anywhere. So she's not really concerned. Her thing is she's going to help her family. And we find out this love of Nora Roberts books also comes from her mother. She introduced them to both her and her sister Jill. And so whenever her mother would go read, she was like, okay, guys, I'm going off to Nora Roberts land. I think that's super cute. And it's that's another thing. That's a connection she shares with her mother. And she's kind of cut herself off from that, because someone made her feel bad about it. That sucks even more, that really does. But anyway, she's also decided she's going to write an article about her quest to find love in her hometown. So, again, she's a hell of a journalist. And what she's going to do is see if she can find, like, someone in one of those novels to prove that there really is true love out there. That's the name of the game. That's the article she's going to write. The super cool thing about that is this is going to help her, and this is also going to help her family. You know, I like that. It's a win-win. It really is. So then we meet Tanner McBride. Tanner has just gotten back in New York. He was an international correspondent, so he's a journalist as well. He's known more so for doing like war stories. Recently he was in Kabul, and honestly he's had enough of it. He does want to come back to the, domestic, be stateside, and he's going to meet up with Richard Summerfield. Yes, Rick the Dick. So they meet at this place, which is kind of like off the wall. There's no one in there but Richard, and we find out Richard really is a son of a bitch. He really is. Richard is hiring Tanner to seduce Meredith and then break her heart. He has found out about this article that she's going to be doing while she's in Deer Valley. And if she writes this article and she finds love, well, when people read it, they're going to go, oh, so you were the problem in the marriage, not her. Because based on the way he said it, she was the problem, right? So what he wants is for Tanner to go break her heart, so that way she's not going to write this article saying how she found this great Nora Roberts love. And I'm just like, this man is ridiculous. Like, the fact that his mind would even go to this place, we already know this bitch is twisted. He really is. So Tanner is like, okay, first of all, I can't hurt people like that. Why would I even do something like this? Like, that's not why I was coming like to work here. Like, it's not for this crap, Richard shows him a picture. She's got blonde hair. He's looking at it like she's a beautiful woman, but he's still like, I'm not doing this to somebody. Richard just keeps talking. Richard's like, I already have a teaching position for you at the local university there, because it's like a college town, or a small college town, shall we say, and gave him everything about her. You've already accepted the position, like all this type of stuff. Tanner's still saying no. Well, then Richard pulls out a picture and proof that Tanner's brother apparently was messing around with the prostitute. He fell off the wagon again and got the prostitute pregnant, or sex worker, however we need to say it, okay? His brother is a public servant. I don't know, I forget the position, if it's like commissioner or something like that, but he's a public servant. So if these pictures, if this information gets out, he will definitely be relapsing, like, for sure. And apparently this happened 10 months ago. He made a promise to his mother that he would always look after his brother, because their dad left when they were really young. And so he made that promise to his mom. But here's my problem. If he already fell off 10 months ago, tell me why he fell off the wagon 10 months ago. Because he's got an issue. So how does protecting him this time around fix anything, is my point. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just go ahead and get to the rock bottom, and if he don't make it, he don't make it. And I know that sounds really harsh, but my thing is, he is now having to go and do something that's against his moral code. He doesn't want to intentionally hurt somebody. He's now got to go and do this because you fell off the wagon and we don't even know why. And so now we're trying to make sure you don't do it again. I'm just saying. I have an issue, and it might be personal to me. I just have an issue of people putting their shit on other people. Like, that's your bullshit. That ain't got nothing to do with me. I shouldn't have to carry that load for you. I carry your load when I want to come and carry that for you. You know, like if I see this is hard for you, I'm coming to help you. You know what I mean? That's different. But he's getting cornered now to do something because you know, if whatever reason it was, you went off the wagon 10 months ago. Again, that's why they know, he knows if this comes out, oh, he's going all the way off the wagon. It's going to happen. But now Tanner's got to try and save him. Oh, I don't like it. I just don't. As they keep talking, he realizes that Meredith, her family, are the Hales, right? These are independent journalists, like, but they're held in super high regard. So he's looking like, you want me to go and mess with these people? You know what I mean? So when he tells the guy about the Nora, Robert books that she's crazy about, the guy, Tanner's never read these. And he, again, is like, what is such a big deal? And Richard's like, they're read by millions of people. So if she goes to this town, she goes back home, she finds love, and she's, talking about this Nora Roberts love that she finds, it's going to ruin my chances. So it looks like at this point he's got to go because he's got to save his brother. And Tanner now wants to destroy Richard. That's his goal now. But as of right now, he is on his way to Dare Valley, Colorado. Oh, po boy. So, and you already know I love when they switch to POV, so I was happy about that. So, Meredith arrives in Dare Valley, and she's leased an Audi since she's going to be here for about 3 months. Jill, of course, hugs her, happy to see her. She's just as happy to see her sister. Her parents are there. Grandfather, he comes out. This is the first time that she's actually looked at her parents and they look like they're getting old. I think she says her dad is like 52 and her mom's got more gray than red hair. So all the women, they all have red hair. Now she went blonde for the period of time that she was with freaking Richard, which is the picture that our boy Tanner McBride saw. He just saw her as a blonde, but she has now gone back to her red hair. And clearly I guarantee you she had the blonde for Richard. But looking at her parents, she realizes they need her. So they're going to go off to Sedona and stay a while. So the dad takes some time off. And she absolutely knows that coming back home was the right decision. She's glad to be back, She's not going to tell them about her side project, but she doesn't want people to find out what she's doing, right? Because then it's going to be news in the family. She just wants to keep it to herself. So they have like this little fight about where she's going to stay. They do a coin toss between the grandfather, his name's Arthur, and her sister Jill. And Jill wins the coin toss. She's like, you're staying with me. But I think it's sweet. That shows that closeness. Everyone wants you to stay with them. I think that's sweet. They go to Jill's place and we do something super cool. We switch to Jill's POV, which I love. We've got 3 now. So you might hear me say Jillian or Jill. Just depends on what I feel like it, but it's the same person. Jill is really concerned about Meredith and the divorce because she realizes that thing did a number on that girl. And so she is super happy to have her sister back. Meredith does wind up telling her the idea for the story and tells her she's the only person she's going to tell. So, please, don't say anything. Well, Jillian decides, you know what? She's going to be the pimp. She's going to set up all this stuff. She's like, we got to go where we can find you some men. So she also sees that her sister bought the La Perla, and Meredith tells her about her alter ego divorcee woman. And Jillian is just like, oh yeah, this is going to be fun. So the alter ego is great, but she's like, we're going to need a little bit more, We got to get you to really come out. Now, for her, La Perla, she kind of looks at it like she could never pull that type of stuff off. Jill does. Like, this is just not her thing. Now, Jill is very eclectic, okay? So her house reflects this. And, she's got her crystals, her different things. She did go and get a necklace that she had made for her sister to help her through this tough time. So it was super sweet. And she asked her sister, who's your favorite male character in the Nora Roberts books? And there's so many books because I think the alter ego also comes from the fact Nora Roberts has an alter ego named JD Robb. And so they're talking about these different books because remember, they both read them. They both read them. And there's all these different attributes with these different characters that they like. And it's kind of hard to fit what she wants fully into one person, So Jill is like, okay, I know what we're going to do. We're going to go out. We're going to go to Harry's. That's where the single guys are. And we're going to have a good time. To Tanner's POV, he's arrived in Colorado. He calls his sister Peggy. Peggy's a cop, and Peggy also has a 7-year-old son named Keith. And Peggy had the same issue. She got cheated on as well. She divorced her husband, and now she's raising her son by herself. So Peggy's the only person that knows the real situation about what's going on here, okay? About the blackmail. And so she's helping him trying to find some dirt on Somerville as well. She doesn't want him to do this because she doesn't want her brother hurting somebody. She understands that, it's all about they're trying to protect their brother. But again, my thing is he freaking did it. I feel like he might need to suffer a little bit, and covering up this doesn't really help him. But hey, that's just me. So the Somerville dude, he thinks might have set up his brother. Like maybe had a hooker go up to him. Like some kind of way set him up to get him thrown off. It's a possibility. So that's an angle that they're trying to work to see if they can find that proof. Doubt it. But it could be anything. I personally think the dude probably just fell off the damn wagon. Doing what he normally did. That's what I think happened. But again, that's their brother. They're trying to find a way to get out of this on both sides, both for our boy Tanner and for his brother, which I forget his name, but I guess you can see that's how important I think he is. He asked her, about coming out for Thanksgiving since he's got to be here for a few months. And she was like, yeah, let's do that. Because, again, remember, he's normally overseas. So he's normally not that close. He gets off the phone with her and he's looking at the file of this woman and he really feels awful like that he has to do this shit. It's like he really doesn't want to do it. He knows she's a really good journalist. He's read some of her work, and the more he looks at this stuff, the more upset he gets because he does not want to have to break her heart. So we switch back to Meredith, and Jill takes her to a hardware store, which was taken over by a classmate named Wayne. Now, Wayne was a weenie in high school, and then she's thinking, Meredith is like, okay, he's probably all buffed up now. No, he's still a weenie. He looks about 10 pounds less than her. She got so pissed, she took a hammer and ran after Jillian. So a cop saw it, and I forget his name. But anyway, they had their back and forth in front of the cop. And the cop's like, I'm just trying to make sure nothing's going on. And he drives off, okay? So then as they're walking, there's a dude that comes out. His name's Brian. Now, Brian and Jillian used to be really good friends in high school. Something went down. He's trying to be nice to her. Jillian being cold as hell. So the dude finally leaves. So that should be fun finding out what that tea is. Meredith, asks what happened. Sister's not trying to tell her anything. Okay? And she pressed her, like, come on, no. Like, I done told you why I'm here. My extra thing. Like, tell me what's going on. So apparently, she thought they were going to be going to the same college. And she also wanted him to be the one to take her virginity. Okay? But he didn't do that. He wouldn't do it. He went and hooked up with somebody else. And he applied to a culinary institute and never told her about it. And so for her, he's untrustworthy. To me, it sounds like she was in love with him and maybe it wasn't reciprocated and she don't want to let go of that. That's the vibe I'm getting. Because if you asked him to be your first and he wouldn't do it, and he goes and bangs somebody else, he didn't want to bang you, is how I would think. And if he went to culinary school, if that's his passion, then he should be able to go to culinary school. And maybe he didn't tell you because you act, you were already too attached. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if they give us a little bit more about them. We switch back to Tanner. He's arrived in Dare Valley. It's beautiful, but he's not a nature person, okay? He's a different breed. He likes more chaos, which is why New York City would have worked for him, because it's chaos. There's only 20,000 people here. He's like, that's not enough people. This is not going to work. This is going to drive me crazy. Well, then he gets a phone call from Summerfield, aka Rich the Dick. And Tanner had gotten a new phone number and, of course, did not give the phone number to Somerville, but yet Somerville got it. And he tells him, yeah, it took me a minute to get your number. He's like, are you there yet? And the guy's like, are you tracking me or something? Are you using my GPS? Like, what is going on? And he's like, have you arrived? He's like, I'm just now pulling in. It's a gorgeous cabin, okay? It's too big for him. He's a person that's more so like, just give me 4 walls and a window and I'm good. Again, he's a different breed. Somerville's on the other line and he's like, I figured you like it. You want an upgrade from your current accommodations, So he's talking to him this whole time and Somerville's trying to tell him, he's like, you got to get her to fall for you fast. Like, don't give her time to think. And then you'll have her hook, line, and sinker. And so he's like, is that what you did? He's like, yeah, I had her in bed within a month. And the guy was like, well, if that's what you did, doesn't seem like it fully worked. She's going to want the opposite of that, right? If you got married to someone that was really quick and it burnt out or ended the way that theirs ended, why would you want the same thing? That's stupid. Like, but that's what he thinks should be the play. Thankfully, Tanner's like, he's going to do it how he sees fit. And Somerville wants updates every 3 days. And Tanner said, you're not finna micromanage me. You'll get an update a week. And Somerville's like, well, what's your plan? What are you going to do? He's like, we not doing this. He gets off the phone. So he goes in the cabin. The first thing he thinks is, I guarantee you this dude has got this place wired with cameras and listening devices. Sure enough, he goes through the house, finds a ton of devices, gets a call from Somerville again saying, nice work, blah, blah, blah. Tanner says, listen, this isn't going to work if you're going to hound me. And I better not find out that you have spies watching me in town either. You need to back off. Give me a chance to figure out how I'm going to make it work. And that's it. You do not need to try and stay on top of me. He said a bunch of slick stuff Somerville did. Threatening again, I'll print those pictures and blah, blah, blah. And he says to him, well, if you do that, if you print the pictures, that's the only reason why I'm here. then I'm not going to do what you want. So that's kind of stupid. So you need to stop threatening with that, you know? Somerville is a bitch. You can tell. We switch back to Meredith, and this is her first day at the newspaper. Her dad's there. Him and her mom, they're gonna leave the next day to go to Sedona. They, of course, again, everyone's happy to have her back, and the grandfather's like, "I'm gonna convince you to stay permanently." He's gonna do it. The grandfather, he's a great journalist. He's like, "Does your trip coinciding with him getting an exploratory committee together for Senate? Is that what's going on?" I say, "Oh, I like him because he's like, he gonna stay ahead of the game." And the grandfather's like, "There's another reason why you're here too." He's like, "I think you have something over him. That divorce was real fast. He gave you a fat sum of money. I think you got some on him." Now, she won't say it. She's like, "Grandfather, you're just thinking too hard, X, Y, and Z, you know." But he knows. He's like, "Yeah, no, something's up." Divorces like that normally will take longer, but he feels like something that quick, something's trying to be covered up. And so he wants to find out. Now, the grandfather is also working on an expose himself. She's not going to tell him about the one she's doing. But apparently, there's a bunch of kids that have been getting sick, ending up in the ER puking. They're saying it's alcohol and marijuana, but he's like, nah, he doesn't think it's that. He think it's some type of drug thing that's going on that he's been investigating, and you know he wants her help with it. And I like it. I like that he's still active. I think he's in his 70s, but he is all about his journalism, honey. Like, all about getting that scoop. Not at a psychotic point, right? To where get the scoop, no matter who I hurt. Not that type of person. But he pays attention and he goes with his gut. And he feels, for him, he said his gut has never led him wrong. So that's what he follows. So the girls, they have a big meal at their parentals, and then they go out to they go back to Jill's apartment, get ready, and then they go out to this place called Harry's. So again, this is where all the eligible men are. She gets quite a few numbers, our girl Meredith. She's got some dates lined up. She met a deputy whose name was Larry Barlow. He was a jerk. It was the same deputy that had passed by when she was taking a hammer like she was gonna hit Jill outside of the hardware store. Same dude, but he has predator vibes. He was very grabby. She was telling him no, and he was just like, "Oh, come on, like, you want it." Like, he was like nonstop. So Jill came over and snatched her away from him. And Jill has a best friend named Gemma. And Gemma is in the dumps and Gemma also works at the coffee shop as well. Gemma just got out of a relationship with a guy named Pete. Pete dumped her, so she's on her, chopped her hair off, doing her rebirth thing, okay? So Gemma is also friends with Brian. Now, Brian shows up. Him and Jill get into it again. The guy says something about, maybe I was just too young to understand what it was or some type of crap like that. And she was just like, basically, she never wants to be friends with them, storms off. Okay? She's never going to make peace. That's her thing. Again, if it's just about the little thing about him going to school somewhere else and taking somebody else's virginity, that shouldn't be enough for you to be this mad all these years later. Just saying. Anyway, I digress. So, Meredith sees a new guy come in. Dude has this strong back. Like, she was a swimmer as well. Okay, so a swimmer recognizes a swimmer. And this dude has basically got her wet just looking at him. Nobody else has ever had that effect on her. And so she didn't approach him, even though she was thinking about doing it, because she wound up getting caught up, I guess, with Jill storming off trying to go help her sister. We fast forward a few days. Meredith has gone on 2 dates, one with a doctor. He was boring as hell, didn't ask her any questions about herself. And then the other one was a park ranger. Nice guy, just dull. So then she goes swimming at the local pool, and she gets up really early so she can be there by herself. And long and behold, our boy Tanner has arrived, and they wind up having a race. She figures out this is that same guy from Harry's, and she, of course, fumbled her greeting with him, especially when he said he was a journalist who would be teaching at the college. She had made this personal promise to herself that after Richard, there would be no more journalists. So after Tanner had helped her out of the pool, and she got all embarrassed about her body, and she just ran out. So we switched to Tanner's POV. He, of course, at first thought it was Meredith, but then he was like, no, it can't be, because he saw a blonde, right? And he's like, this woman has red hair. There's no way. So he then goes to the coffee shop, Don't Soy With Me. Based on the information that he got for Summerfield, he knows that this is Meredith's sister. Jill owns this coffee shop. So he goes there. Jill, of course, remembers this guy from the other night, and she's thinking, you know what? I messed it up for my sister with me storming out with my bullshit. I'm going to fix this now for her. So she's talking to him and, finding out why he's there, and she winds up inviting him to dinner on Friday. He, of course, is like, do you invite all the, new people in town? She's like, no, but you're a journalist, so I figured you'd probably be interested in meeting my grandfather, Arthur Hale. So he's like, Arthur Hale is a legend, in the journalism space. So he, of course, is ready to meet him. And then she says, and my sister Meredith is a journalist. And so I'm sure you all will have a lot to talk about. So that's when he finds out that the red-haired woman was Meredith. And I'm like, this should be wild. This should be fun. Friday's here. Our girl Meredith goes to their grandfather's house. She sees Tanner. She, of course, what are you doing here? He's looking at her like, you're Meredith. Your hair's red. And so they do their whole back and forth. He never says, like, oh, I thought you were blonde. He never says anything like that. So then the grandfather offered Tanner to write an article, which Tanner is beyond ecstatic about because this is the all great Arthur Hale, right? It's a freaking legend. So then he goes outside with Meredith, and Meredith tells him, I'm not dating a journalist anymore. It's a vow I made. And as she's telling him, she starts to freak out really bad and winds up having a full-on panic attack. He was able to bring her back down, but when she was calm, the beautiful thing was he didn't try and make her feel bad, and she was like, I just got overwhelmed, and she says they started happening after her divorce, which in his mind, he's thinking like, what the hell did this man do to her that she's having panic attacks like this? He must have really took her through it, And again, this makes him feel even worse. Like, I'm supposed to break the heart of somebody that this man clearly did a number on, That rocks him. It really does. But she's also upset with herself. Like, that's crazy. The most probably intense automatic thing she's felt for somebody, and it's a damn journalist. you know but it's like, I don't know, I think she's putting too much on the fact that he's a journalist, you know what I'm saying? Like, being a journalist, I believe, is not why you got why you got treated like shit, baby girl. It's not because of the profession. Okay? It is because of who that person was. You know? That's why that happened. But for her, I get it. If you go through something traumatic, you want to avoid all signs of it. I do understand. We switched to Tanner. He's shaving, still getting used to this because, see, normally he just has a beard when he's overseas because he's trying to fit in. He winds up getting a call from Dickhead and he tells Richard it's not going to work. She's not going to date me. He's like, you need to try harder. He's like, no. He didn't tell Richard about the panic attack, okay? But he did say that she's not going to date journalists anymore, you know? And Richard is like, well, then you're not pushing hard enough. But I do like the fact he didn't give Richard that ammunition that she's having panic attacks. I do like that, you know? Which shows again that he's not a bad dude and he really doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to try and put any other hurt on this woman than what he's already been freaking blackmailed to do, you know? The dude, of course, does another threat, and he gets off the phone with him. We fast forward about a month and she still won't go out with him. Every morning, like, they're doing these meetups at the pool. They have their races, but that's it. The other problem is he's getting intel from Jill because Jill likes him, and wants him to be with Meredith. So she's telling him where Meredith is going on these dates. So now he feels like he is now the lowest form of journalist, which is paparazzi. And he's getting upset because as he's watching her with these other people, spending that time with her in the morning, he's starting to like her more and more, right? And he's getting pissed. So on this, Jill had invited him to come out to Harry's because she knew that Meredith was going to be there with some dude. And so, sure enough, she's in there with this guy named Avery who owns a cheese shop and talk about cheese. So Jill and Tanner go over to the table and mess with the dude. The dude don't even realize what the hell is going on, okay? They're talking about mozzarella balls. It's a whole thing. The guy is not picking up. Our girl Meredith like hits him underneath the table and he winds up grabbing her thigh. So much heat radiated from Tanner to Jill to Tanner when he did this. And so eventually he leaves from the table. Tanner and Jill, they go and they get a drink. And then before they're going to go play darts, but while they're getting their drink, the dude Brian McConnell comes up and he's looking at the Tanner dude like, who are you? Like, you're too old for her. And Jill goes, I wanted an older lover. I wanted someone who knew what they wanted. So the Brian dude gets pissed and turns away, leaves. He looks so freaking defeated. And so Jill and Tanner go and shoot darts, and then we switch to Meredith's POV. So just as they had suspected, she is not having fun, and she cannot stop thinking about Tanner. And so she finds it crazy how he always is coming around when she's on her dates. She's seeing him more and more and more. She winds up telling the Avery dude, she'll see him later. She goes over to Brian because he's sulking, and he's just like, I did something wrong once, and like Jill is just done with me forever. Like, that's it. And Meredith is, she felt bad for him. She goes to join Jill and Tanner. Jill is getting her ass beat, which that doesn't normally happen. She's pretty good at darts. She's looking pissed. And after that, Tanner was like, well, I got to get up early. And he leaves. And then not too long after that, Jill and Meredith leave. And then when they get in the car, Jill kind of has a come to Jesus moment with her. Jill is just like, what are you doing? That rule you have about him being a journalist and not wanting to date any other journalist is a stupid freaking rule. She's like, it didn't work out with Richard because Richard's an asshole, not because he's a journalist, you know? And you can't put that label on all journalists. Like, you can't do that. That's not real. And Meredith doesn't want to hear this. She, of course, threatens. She's like, well, maybe I just need to leave, move out from with Jill. Jill says, you can leave. That's fine. That's your prerogative. But you're going to have these same problems no matter where you go. And I was just happy if Jill said something to her, you know? And she told her, you're wasting your time. You don't like these dude. That wasn't supposed to be your purpose. The purpose of this was supposed to you were trying to find somebody that was really worth your time, that really could develop into something. But that's not what you're doing. You know? So Meredith then of course comes back at her about how stubborn she's being when it comes to Brian. She's like, maybe we both need to stop being so damn stubborn, you know? And so begrudgingly, Jill was like, you right, I agree. And so they leave. We fast forward a couple weeks and she still hasn't agreed to go out with Tanner. Still a mess. She went to Don't Soar with Me and she had a date with the dude. And Jill wasn't going to be there that day. She knew it. That's why she wanted to meet up with the guy there. And then her grandfather comes in and he has this back and forth with Gemma who works there. And basically, he wanted to pay. She's like, you don't have to pay. He wanted regular coffee. She gave him a list of all these different types of stuff. They go back and forth. Eventually, she gives him some regular coffee and winds up crying after he makes a really sweet statement. He says, that boy Pete, he's a fool, you know? And he should have never let you go. And she hugged him. And it was a sweet, sweet little scene to read. So anyway, Meredith tells the guy who was like an archaeologist, she tells him bye again. She's not interested. It's not working. Okay. So she goes and sits with her grandfather. Her grandfather, Arthur, says to her, you know, what are you doing? You know? He's like, word has got back to your mom that you're dating all these men. They're calling you basically like almost like a slut a little bit. Like you're on the rebound trying to find someone, like you're desperate trying to find somebody. Now, she hadn't thought about it in that light, right? She's gone on a lot of dates. Now, we all know you go on dates, that don't mean you fucking, okay? But it also don't mean you not fucking. So, she hadn't even thought about that look of all these different men she's dating, right? She just really wasn't looking at it that way. And so the grandfather's like, are you trying to make Rick the Dick jealous? Yes, I've overheard you and Jill call him that. She's like, no, no, no. And he's like, well, has he tried to do something to you? To like get back at you? And she's like, no. He says, so then that means you're doing a story. She goes, no, I'm not. He's like, you're lying to your grandfather. She's like, please don't make me tell you. Like, don't ask me no more questions. He tells her the only person that you like and that you want is the Tanner McBride guy. So that's who you need to date. You know, stop all this other stupid stuff. I like it. He said his piece and the grandfather left. So she finally gave an invitation to Tanner. They are going to go to a Halloween party. She's dressed as Wonder Woman. He's dressed as a pirate. And so she was still acting kind of weird when he came to her door to pick her up. And the way she was acting, he was like, oh, so you just invited me because you ran out of guys to ask that were under 50. And he's like, this is not going to work. You know, he kissed her to prove that there was this magnetic attraction between the two of them. But afterwards, she was about to have a fucking panic attack again. And she's like, I don't think I can do it, And she says, like committing to one person, I don't know if I can do that. She's like, but I can, if you're okay with me playing the field, that can work. And he said, oh no, I'm not playing that game. He said, you like me. I know you like me. But there's another reason why you're not deciding to be with me. He was like, and so therefore, I'm gone. And he left her ass right there. His dick was so hard when he got outside. He was, oh. He winds up being a little weird, and I guess he needed a jolt of adrenaline and hit the gas on the highway. Almost hit a deer. It gave him a rush, but then he's like, okay, I gotta chill out. I gotta calm down. It's getting complicated because the problem is he likes her. And so Somerville is gonna want an update, and he doesn't have one. And now he's worried about what Somerville is gonna do to his brother. We switch to Jill's POV. She's at the party. She's dressed like Little Bo Peep. um, Gemma's there, and she wound up getting a little wasted because she had gone in the back after she had saw her ex Pete come in with another female. Okay, apparently this was his new girlfriend, and so she went to go have some weed. She'd already been drinking, and then she had some weed, and now she seems really wasted. So Jill's like, "Don't you drink anything else?" And Jill started feeling like it's too much going on in here. She needed some air. So she goes outside. Brian goes out there with her. He's dressed as Batman. And she gets cold. He takes his cape off, gives it to her. They have their little back and forth. And he, of course, does the whole, why won't you forgive me? Like, just forgive me. And he's like, why can't you? She's like, fine, you're forgiven. He's like, am I really? And she's like, you're forgiven. So then he tells her, take my mask off. She won't do it. He said it again. She wouldn't do it. He said, fine. So he just kissed her. Explosive kiss. He was like, let's get out of here. But then there was all this screaming going on. And they go in to see what's happening. And she sees Gemma's sandal, like, Gemma's laid out on the floor. So Brian was checking for a pulse. There's no pulse. He administered CPR. He kept going. He kept going. The Ray guy, who's the one that sells the Mary Jane, he left out. And we find out that Arthur had been asking Jill if she knew anybody that was selling it. She knew the Ray guy was, but she felt like he's a good kid. She never wanted to, tell on the guy or nothing like that. Well, then the Ray guy, he left because the cops are coming. And she was just like, these cowards. Paramedics get there. Brian wouldn't stop giving the CPR until they came, but they pronounced her dead. So this girl done lost her friend, her coworker. I'm like, oh my gosh, this shit is getting real. We switch back to Meredith's POV, and she finally got Jillian to sleep. There was a knock on the door. It's Tanner. He had gone for a swim that morning. She didn't show up. He thought she was just mad, and then when he went to the coffee shop, they told him what had happened. And his first reaction was just to come over here. She told him everything that had went down. She winds up asking him, like, well, why are you here? He said, honestly, I don't know. I just know I couldn't stay away. His journal Peak has been intrigued by this. If all she had was weed and some alcohol, this shouldn't have happened. So they're rushing the toxicology report. Um, per her grandfather Arthur, her parents are gonna come back in for the memorial service, and he of course was like, I'll let you be. I'll call and check on you, X, Y, and Z. And she was like, how would you check on me? You don't have my number. He said, I'm a journalist. He said, mermaid, I have your number. That's cute because her family calls her mermaid as well. It's her pet name. So I thought that was super cute. So they go to the funeral. They had it at a gymnasium at the college because it was like over 1,000 people that came. And Brian was there. Pete was there. Jill had to step down because it was just so hard for her. And Brian had this thing. He had to get out of there. Like, he looked like he had a freak out. She went after him. Apparently, she had been calling him for 5 days. He hadn't been answering. He told her, I can't do this right now. He's like, just stay away from me. Meredith was there to try and keep the peace, not to make too much of a scene. Jill kept saying, Brian, she was worried about him. That's why she was calling him. And I don't know. It was just that whole thing. It was sad to read, you know. So Tanner came over. He helped him. Jill didn't want to go to the gravesite. He told her, "You're going for the family. You're going to say for the goodbye. But your friend's not there. She's already gone. Blah blah blah." So Jillian got to the car, and then Tanner went to his car. Meredith's hands are freezing, so he gave her his gloves. Even though they were too big, she still took them, and she, of course, seeing him in a new light, how he's stepping up to help and things like that. He winds up telling her about how in high school he lost his best friend in a car accident. Car hit the driver's side, and so he understands about losing a close friend. And so Jillian, her family, they just cried, and it was just sad. I did forget to mention toxicology came back. It said she had a heart murmur, natural causes. Author's pissed off because that's not what he anticipated. That's not what he expected to hear. We switched to Tanner's POV, and the way this town is mourning and coming together is very heartwarming to him. The students are wearing black armbands in Gemma's remembrance, and it was different. It's just he didn't expect to be touched by the community, and I think that's because he's not really used to it. He's used to being in some war torn place, so this is a different scenario for him, and it's actually nice, which I think is him starting to like this small town feel, right? It's not as bad as he thought it was going to be. That's my little prediction. He went into Don't Soy With Me, Gemma's not being there. He noticed that it wasn't as bright. So the girl really was a bright light. She really was. He winds up coming back one of the days that's like Jill's first day coming back. She did like an off type of shift. And she's like, well, I can't let the business go under. Gemma wouldn't want me to do that. And she gave him coffee on the house. And he knows that he's fallen in love with Meredith. And he's trying to get her to not do the article. He doesn't want to do anything crazy to her, right? He doesn't want to hurt her. So when he hears he goes back home, he hears some branches rustling, and it's this dude, the Ray guy, the one from the party that Jill knew he sells. And the guy's like, I gotta talk to you. He's like, but I couldn't do it in public. And Tanner's like, okay, what do you need to talk to me about? And he says about what happened to Gemma. He says, well, that's old news. She had a heart murmur. He said, no, I think I might have done it. He leads the guy inside, makes him some coffee. This is the story. So, Ray first asks him, I'm your, source, right? So you can't reveal who I am. And Tanner says, well, first you gotta give me something first in order for me to do that. So Ray says he started noticing people getting sick going to the ER. He asked the dealer, Kenny, about it, and the guy was like, keep your mouth shut. So he knows something's going on. He thinks they're lacing the Mary Jane. He just doesn't know with what. And this is freaking him out, and it has been. And now the fact that this girl done freaking died, you know, there's something else going on. Because here's the thing, they said it was a heart murmur, and the only thing that it said I think was in her system was like alcohol, which that's not true because they know for a fact she had pot. She smoked that night, so that would have been in her system. So something's going on. He also stated that the police officer that came was the deputy, Larry Barlow, and the cops, there weren't a ton of cops. The ambulance were called, and he's like, I know there was product left there, and people told the police that I was there, told people that I sell, but no one's contacted me. And he's like, something's off. So as Tanner's listening to this, he knows, yeah, there's something going on. There's a bigger situation at play here. He doesn't know how big this goes, but this sounds like this is going to go pretty wild. We find out that the boy started selling pot because his car broke down and he needed to fix it, and he also needed money for law school because he's trying to get into law school. And he said he noticed people started coming to him sooner and sooner for the drugs. Like, normally these were people that were like weekend partiers having fun. Then it was like all of a sudden they needed it faster. So that definitely suggests that this stuff is getting laced. It's just a matter of what the heck it is that's being used. So later on that evening, he gets a call from Somerville. Again, Somerville making the threats. And he's also getting a lot of information on how things are going because Jill's ass is on Facebook giving kind of updates in a certain way. She's not saying names, but because he knows what the hell going on, he can put two and two together. I'm like, this shit's getting out of control on so many levels. Tanner goes to Meredith and he's like, is there a place where we can go and we won't be overheard? He's like, yeah, she's like, yeah, my grandfather's. So they go to the grandfather's house because he's already at work. He tells her what he knows without revealing his source. And she's thinking, oh my gosh, my grandfather was right. He had a hunch. So they're going to tell the grandfather so he can get access to the autopsy report. He tells her, we're going to be spending a lot of time together, so we need to come with the cover. Because if we're going to be working this story, people are going to want to know, like, first of all, they don't want people to know that they're working a story. So he's like, we need to act as if we're being exclusive with each other. You know, since, she took it off the table before, she's like, but we need to at least fake it. But in his head, he's thinking this will help his case in trying to prove to Somerville that they are serious. So we'll see. So he didn't kiss her, even though his dick was hard, because he's crazy about her. He was like, let's just keep it fake, and that's how it'll be. She felt some type of way about it, but hey, it is what the hell it is. Somerville made good on his promise. There was an article released about Tanner's brother, which basically was talking about his shaky track record with voters and how this is not good press for his brother, being that the race is already so tight. So he gets a call from his sister Peggy, and she's she's going to, what did she say she was going to do? She said something. I don't remember. But my thing again with the brother is it seems like he could crumple at any moment. And I don't know. It just, that's the part that gets me, that makes me feel like why we fight so hard. But anyway, um, Peggy's still coming for Thanksgiving. He told Peggy about the situation, the possible cover up. What she's going to do is he's going to get a sample of the drugs from Ray, and then he's going to give her the drugs to test in her lab where she's at, because she is in, I want to say, Kansas City. So that's what they're going to work out. Then there's this little mangy dog that keeps coming around, and his sister says, does he have a collar? And he's like, no. He's like, you might as well go ahead and call the dog yours. You always wanted one when we were younger, but we were too poor. So he doesn't like to think about that type of stuff because that was their reality. So he decides when he gets off the phone, he goes in the kitchen, sees what he can find for the dog. He's gonna take the dog to the vet, and this is also his way of accepting that he's not going back overseas. You know, it's really not when you done got a whole fucking dog. And it was a neat name he calls the dog. It'll probably come to me later. Meredith comes to his place. First thing she notices, this place looks like money, right? And our boy Tanner doesn't really give off wealth, right? So he comes to the door. She's pissed because he didn't come swimming that morning, which is why she's over here. And she asked him why he didn't come swimming. He told her he had some stuff with his family to deal with. And she was like, is everyone okay? And he's like, they will be. She brought over the autopsy report. No mention of anything with but alcohol. So Meredith thinks the coroner, Gene, because she knows him, right? She's known him her whole life. He's friends with her dad. They go fishing. That he did it to protect the parents because they're church people and X, Y, and Z. Tanner's not buying it. He's like, you're going to obstruct justice for church, you know? So Tanner starts asking questions like, is he having money trouble? And she did say that the last time she saw him, he said he felt a little jealous because her parents could go to Sedona, whereas he had to put off his retirement for a year because the stock market didn't play right. Okay? So for Tanner, it means he's having money issues, which means there's a possibility he could be bought. She doesn't want to believe that, of course, but something's up. So they're going to meet with the grandfather, put all the information on the table, and then go from there. So they meet up at the grandfather's house, get all the information out. The grandfather doesn't think Gene is doing anything, with ill intent. However, he is going to have him run the test again to see if there's a possibility that there was something that would have been in her system. And Tanner, a Gene guy, he says we need a third party, someone, which is why I'm glad he's there, honestly, because I feel like they would have just looked the other way. But having Tanner there with the full doubt, Arthur kind of was like, okay, we can at least do this, to kind of rule that out with doing another test. Because clearly y'all didn't, who you thought was what wasn't, you know what I'm saying? So my thing is to have like a blank, like anybody could have did this. And I think if you have that mindset, then things that are big deals, you're not going to like make them small. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't want to believe that person did some crap like that. Anyway, she's thinking about the fact that she's got to, first of all, she asked him to reveal his source. He would not do it. Um, she's only supposed to be here through Thanksgiving, and then she's supposed to go back to New York, which means she won't finish the story. And Tanner was like, I can finish the story, but she was like, no, I want to see everything through. So she's going to stay until the story is complete. So the grandfather sends her upstairs to go get a sweater or something because he wants to talk to Tanner. So Tanner um, gets taken to the grandfather's office, and the grandfather, Arthur, says, you want to tell me why there's a story about your brother in Somerville's paper? And he's like, oh, shoot, this man is thorough. And Tanner just says it's election time, so, X, Y, and Z. Arthur says that's mighty strange, especially being that Somerville is the one that recommended you. You Somerville's friend? And Tanner said no. He tells him, I got recommended for the job. That's all I know. Journalism is a small pool. That's it. Arthur says, if there's something going on, I'm going to figure it out. And all I know is you better not hurt my granddaughter. He tells Arthur he has the utmost respect for both his granddaughter and him, his family. And Arthur says, yeah, I hear you, but I'll do anything to protect my family. He straightens up this picture of him when he was like 15. And he had I want to say a shotgun. And Meredith comes back in and she tells him how that's like her favorite photo of her grandfather. And he says, I never told you the whole backstory. Basically, some men stole their horses from Arthur and his family's farm. Arthur and his dad went to go get the guys. The only part they told is that they turned in 2 guys to the police. There was a third person. And Arthur was the person that shot him, took him out because the guy was about to shoot his dad. Again, that was him letting him know, I will do anything to protect my family. Tanner understood he understood perfectly. I can't mess with y'all. So Tanner is just finished up with classes for the day, for that class for the day. He calls Ray over, but he says something to him about his last paper and there was an issue with it, blah blah blah. And so he took him into his office. Ray started freaking out because he's like, what if someone sees? He was like, I'm setting up a pattern of a reason as to why you would come in here. That's why I said there was an issue with your paper. There was no issue with the paper. He said it was super good. It was A+. You're good. He was like, but what it is I need a sample of the Mary Jane so that I can give it to my sister. So, no, he didn't say sister. He just said so I can have it done at another lab. Ray's freaking out because Kenny at the garage has been trying to get him to start back up selling. So he's been keeping the guy off, saying that, people aren't really asking for it, X, Y, and Z. So that's where we are with Ray. Ray is freaking out. He's trying to calm Ray down, but this is real shit, especially if they threatening him and stuff, you know. So, ooh. So in public, Tanner will hold her hand. He'll keep his hands all over her, but he won't kiss her in the mouth. And whenever it should be just them, he always has the grandfather there. It is driving Meredith crazy. So they go to Harry's and they see the guy Kenny from the garage, and he's there with his wife, I think, because he's married. And Meredith is getting all worked up because she's reached a point where she wants it, right? So Jill comes over and says, well, god dang, just go bone already, So they leave out, but they're kind of following Kenny as well. And so when they left out, she's like grabbing all on him and stuff, but he's watching Kenny. And Kenny's talking to Deputy Barlow. Okay? They're not talking about oil changes, okay? So then they get in the vehicle, Tanner and Meredith. Tanner checks his phone. He's got a message from his source. He's in trouble. So he tells her he's going to drop her off, but then he's got to go. And she was like, I want to come with you. He's like, no, you can't come. She's like, well, if I don't hear from him, I'm calling the police. He said, I don't think we can trust the police at this point. So he drops her off. She's fully worried, pacing back and forth. And again, for her, there's a realization, there's real fear because she has fallen for this man. That's what's going to happen. The message from Ray, he sounded terrified. He said that he was told by Kenny, you better bring me the other drugs. Because Kenny had told him, I can't do this anymore. Because Kenny kept saying, the numbers are low and blah, blah, blah. And Ray was like, I just can't do this. So Kenny said, well, then you need to bring me whatever product you haven't sold. And I guess Kenny didn't do it fast enough. Because Kenny had told him he didn't have it. He was like, I don't have any more product. I flushed it down the toilet. Kenny didn't believe him. And so when the boy came back to his apartment, it had been ransacked and the drugs were gone. Thankfully, he had already given some to Tanner to be tested. But the dude's terrified. So Tanner went to Ray's place. Ray never showed up. Then he gets a call from Ray's phone. And the person says, you better stay out of our way. So now he's freaking out because whoever just used Ray's phone knows he's involved, right? So now Ray isn't safe. I'm like, oh my gosh. So he talked to Meredith. She tried to get him to come over, but he said, no way. He did go and sit outside of her place, and he waited until her lights went off, and then he left and he went home. And I'm just like, I feel bad for him. Like, this is so much on poor Tanner. It really is. Next morning, by the time she got to the pool, Tanner was already swimming. He looked like he was on a mission, didn't want to be disturbed. She does her laps. Afterwards, she asked him to go get some coffee. He declined at first. She kept coming. She kept bothering him. And she had decided she, was going to tell him that she did want to be with him, right? So she begged him to come with her to go get coffee. He goes. They get to the coffee spot, and she grabs his hand when they go in. We find out horrible news. So Jill was like, she just heard from the deputy that there was a car accident with a kid from college, and she could see like anger radiating off of Tanner. Meredith could. And she knew it before Jill even said it, who the hell the person was going to be. Ray Pollock. So he was like, I can't do coffee. I'll talk to you later. He left. He lied and said something like he left the dog something, he got to go get him. And Meredith was like, oh shoot, she's like, just give me his coffee. I'll take it to him. And Jill had made the comment, bad shit, basically happens in threes. And I'm like, oh hell, well, what else finna happen? So Tanner goes back to his house. He's chopping wood. Meredith pulls up. He's like, I told you to stay away. She's like, well, that's not gonna happen. And she said, Ray was your source, wasn't he? And he said, I don't want to talk about it. She was like, I'm not going anywhere, He's like, this has to end. He's like, we're talking about murder at this point. The fact that deputy went to tell Jill, Deputy Barlow, he wanted Jill to know for a reason. It's a warning. And he's like, it just got real last night, So he's like, you and your grandfather, you guys are out of this. I'm going to investigate it from here on out. Keep your distance from me. She, of course, is, you can't stop me from investigating. I'm going to do it with or without you, me and my grandfather. So she's like, let's go inside. He said, if we go inside, it changes everything. She said, I know it will. And she's like, you'll have me fully like you want. And so for him, it was a relief to hear her say that. He is tired of doing everything on his own, and so he wants to protect her. And all he can think is God help him. They go inside. She cleans up his little blister and stuff from chopping the wood and everything. And while she's cleaning it up, he said, you know, how it's his fault that the kid died. She's like, no, it's not. You had no way of knowing. He's like, I should have sent him away. She's like, again, you had no way of knowing what was going to happen. You know, they might have shut down the operation. You know, we just had no way of knowing what these people were going to do. And he felt, he felt so bad. And so they get to kissing because, she's trying to make him happy. And his phone buzzes. And it's his sister. And so he goes and takes the call. He comes back out. He's like, okay, you go to work. He's like, and we got to keep stuff as normal as possible. He tells her clearly they have people watching us, so we got to be extra careful. So they're going to meet up at the grandfather's house and talk about some plans. Tanner goes to Arthur's place that night, and Arthur be doing real work, okay? So Arthur found out that Kenny got a dishonorable discharge from the military, and that him and the deputy Barlow, Larry Barlow, they went to college together at the University of Colorado. And apparently they were previously working in the same place prior to moving to Deer Valley. Okay? So he was dishonorably discharged, and what was written is basically they couldn't prove that he was selling drugs, but they basically got rid of him instead of pursuing, like, charging him. Okay? So they know he was doing it, they're just not going to charge him with it. So they just gave him a dishonorable discharge. Because they suspected him in Afghanistan of getting drugs. Okay? So clearly these two are up to no good. And they like to find, if they were in a previous town together, something's going on. Also, he found out that Ray's car was released to the deputy. Normally the car would go to the junkyard, because what they said was that he, it was an accident, ran off the road, right? So this is clearly some stuff. So Tanner's like, well, then I got to get into that Kenny's garage and get some bugs put in there. And Meredith's like, that's illegal, blah, blah, blah. And the grandfather was like, hey, sometimes you got to get your hands dirty. And she was like, grandfather, you've done stuff like this? He was like, yeah, you got to do what you got to do to get the story. Sometimes you do. And for her, it's like, oh my gosh, this shit is just getting too real. So they get to the auto shop. There's red paint on on Ray's car. Okay? So he took a plastic bag, took a knife, put those paint chips. He's going to get those tested. Okay? So they're trying to match everything up, so that way they'll have enough proof to take it and take these guys down. Okay? Then they hear a noise, so they got to jump in the trunk. She was about to have a panic attack, and I was like, bitch, you better not. She better calm the fuck down. This is not the place for this stupid shit. She winds up biting her lip so hard she drew blood, not to freak out. Because these people kill. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, this ain't the time for you to be doing all of that. Get yourself together. Because she didn't have to come, but she begged to come. So it's like, then you got to act right, So anyway, they hear the conversation. The Kenny guy saying that he didn't try to run the dude off the road. The dude was just freaking out so bad that he ran off the road. But that still would be like second degree or something like that, she was thinking. They admitted that the heat, was getting too hot. They're like, we got 2 dead kids. This is all a problem. They don't want to leave and start over again, which certifies that when they were in the previous town, they were doing the same bullshit. So they're going to lay low. They know that Tanner was a war correspondent. Tanner had came by the garage earlier that day, which is basically him letting them know he's not backing down, right? So they're going to put the product in the Kenny's truck and park it somewhere and just lay low. Because they do know that Tanner's only here for a short assignment, just for a few months. So they're getting all this information. The vehicle is scheduled to get crushed tomorrow. And so then they'll wait for Tanner to leave and then they'll resume. So eventually they were able to get out. She takes him back to, or they go back to his place. And he was like, call your sister, tell her you're not coming home tonight and not to worry. She was like, no problem, you know. So they do that. Also, he, before they left the garage, he did put the bugs in place so they could have the listening devices there. Who knows if they're going to talk anymore, but he got it up. They go back to his place. He, of course, is doing the are you sure, are you sure? She says yes. They have their fun. Afterwards, he's concerned because he's got to tell her the truth. He does not want to lose her, but he's got to tell her the truth. So when he wakes up in the morning, he fucks her again because it's like he wants to experience her, and just in case, you know, hell, she tells him never again. I never want to speak to you, you know. So then Meredith and Tanner go to the coffee shop next day together. Jill is all excited because they're clearly together. She's ecstatic. They finally did it. Jill invited him and his family to Thanksgiving dinner. And he's like, you don't have to do that. And Meredith was like, no, no, no. We want you there. Like, come, bring your family. That would be, we'd love to have you. She saw Brian coming in and, no, I'm lying. Brian was walking down the street. He was walking to the restaurant where he works. He's a sous chef. And so she decides she's tired of him not responding to her. Jill does. And so she goes and she confronts him. So Brian and Pete had went out of town after the funeral. And she's still pissed at Pete because Pete was the one that kind of broke, you know, he broke up with old Gemma and then he brought the bitch to the party, which sent her over the edge. And Brian was like, I'm not getting involved in that. You know, that's between you and Pete. But he's like, Pete is very much upset, you know. Brian can't forgive himself because he couldn't save Gemma. She tries to ease his pain. He was like, but what about you and me? Like, you can't even forgive me for what happened from before, you know? And so it really is about the whole, you know, not wanting to take her virginity, not going to the same college because they were best friends. But clearly she was in, like, she been in love with this dude. That's why it hurt her so bad. And she winds up yelling out to him that, you know, he wasn't in it for the long haul. That's what hurts her so bad. And then she runs back down the street to her shop. And she starts thinking about the things that she was thankful for, which was her family, her health, her business. But it's still not enough. Because she want that dude, Brian. Tanner was in class. People weren't paying attention. It was so much sorrow. He said, y'all just go home. You know, just screw it. Um, he gets a call from Somerville wanting proof that him and Meredith are together, even though he tells them we're exclusive. He's like, I want more proof. He's like, have you slept with her? He lied. He said he hadn't. He's like, well, when you do sleep with her, that's how you know she's in love, because she won't do it unless she's in love. So he wanted a picture of them together as proof. He starts saying more stuff about a takedown, saying he won't not only his brother, but he'll take down both him and Meredith. I was like, this dude is just so pitiful. But anyway, he says he's on his way to a massage parlor. bask in his victory. So after he gets off the phone with him, he gets a call from he calls his sister Peg and tells her to have a private eye follow the guy. And she's like, yeah, I could do that. Because ain't no telling who knows what he's doing at the massage parlor, okay? So that night, Meredith comes over. She's like, what happened? And he's like, I gotta shave. She shaved him. They have some conversation. And then they had a nice heart fuck in the bathroom. He told her he was falling for her. He also asked her to take a picture, which freaked her out a little bit because that was like, meaning this is kind of serious. But she said, okay. And she said she cared about him a lot too. And he was like, that's enough confession for right now. And so, what did he do? It was a statement he made, which was like, that's enough honesty for now. We can't take any more, but time is coming. Which is kind of like ominous to make a statement like that. And that does worry her. And I would understand why. But I've been unasked, what does that mean? Why are you saying that? So the next morning, he's basking in, the wonderful night they had with his girl. He sends this stupid picture to Somerville. And Somerville calls. He's like, you got your picture good enough. He's like, it'll do for now. But of course, he always wants more. He made a comment about, what did he say? He said, I could have just had you to where you just stopped the article, but now I'm feeling a bit jealous. And now I kind of want her to know for me, because then she'd hate you forever. So he's just slimy and grimy. He's just evil. That's all it is. So Tanner has an explosion on the phone because he's like, he's sick of this, And he's like, I'm going to be with her and her family on Thanksgiving. And the dude was like, well, I want to see you decorated the house. Send me a pic, I'm like, this dude is just weird, And he also spotted the private eye that they sent when he went to the massage parlor. And he's like, find a better PI. I can recommend someone for you. I'm just like, this dude is just so annoying. Okay, they have the memorial, same gymnasium. It's like deja vu, just sad. Oh my gosh. What else happened? After that, her and Tanner have a conversation, and they were at Jill's place, and Somerville had sent flowers, and she of course was like, that's weird of him. Also, she was like trying to make sure he understood there was nothing going on. He asked her, like, what did she ever see in Richard? She got mad because she felt like that was him questioning her judgment. But I'm like, that's a legit question. Sorry, but it is. They make up, have a fuck in the room. He leaves, plans on telling her he loves her, and telling the truth once Peggy, his sister, and his nephew Keith leave. And we also find out that Peg, she had caught her man cheating while she was on a stakeout, honey. She saw him coming out of the woman's house. Wow. So, yeah, she knows about cheating husbands. So, Thanksgiving comes. Everyone enjoyed themselves. There was great conversation. Peg and Meredith had a little convo. That was good. Next morning, they go to the coffee shop, run into Deputy Barlow. And he, of course, he's such a dick. Anyway, the baby Keith wanted to help out Jill, so she let him come behind there and help. And The guy, of course, wanted to know who Peg was. She said who she was. Then, as the little boy was talking, Barlow realized, oh, the sister's in law enforcement. So that put him on alert. And I'm like, oh, this ain't good. So then, back at the house, Peg tells Tanner, like, you need to tell Meredith how you feel. She can tell that he loves that woman. She's like, tell her everything. Just get it all out there. So Peg leaves the next day, I think. The baby Keith, he doesn't want to go. And it tugs at Tanner's heart too, because it's like, finally, like, he's building this really great relationship with his family, and he's gonna miss them. He gets a call from Peg because she is getting followed by Barlow. So she calls Tanner, keeps him on speakerphone, and she's telling Keith, the baby, she's like, okay, I'm gonna need you to be brave for me. Like, I'm gonna need you to say that you gotta use the bathroom. He's like, but I don't have to. He's like, but I need you to say that you do, X, Y, and Z. So the baby start freaking out, start crying and stuff, but that only helps with what she's about to do. So Tanner looked on the map where she was, and when she told him, gave her location, and he said, about a mile ahead, there's a gas station. Pull off into the gas station. So that's what she did. Barlow had turned his lights on, but she didn't pull over until she got to the gas station. Barlow gets out. He's like, why didn't you pull over when I, did that? When I turned the lights on? And she was like, I got a kid that's got to use the restroom. So and what were you me over for? I wasn't doing anything. He was like, oh, you were slightly speeding. She's like, speed. But whatever. If you're going to write me a ticket, write me a ticket. But I got to take my kid in here to use the bathroom before he pees on himself. So they go in, and the baby wound up peeing on itself, so it only helped. But by the time they came back out, which she kept Tanner on the phone that whole time, had on speakerphone, he was gone. But thankfully, she had put the sample in her bra, because she had already thought, what if he tries to put, being that they ran over the other boy, she was like, she gonna put it on her body, so that way if he searched the vehicle, he didn't find anything, which is good, because then they won't be thinking anything about the sister. So it worked out. So after this, Tanner, Meredith comes over, and because he had already messaged her to come, and he was going to tell her everything, but now he wanted to keep her safe. He wanted to keep her as far away from him. And so he was going to tell her, like, this had to end. So Meredith comes over. They make love. He goes to the bathroom, and then Somerville calls his damn phone. She goes to answer it, thinking it was Peg, because he had told her what had happened. And so he comes out. There's this confrontation. What he decided to lean into was that he was just doing it for a job, that he was just there for a story, all this type of stuff, because he figured this was the best way to protect her. She, of course, heartbroken, upset. She leaves. And afterwards, Tanner threw up. He was so hurt. He hadn't done that since he had saw, like, the remnants of a freaking massacre. I felt bad for him. Meredith goes to her sister to tell Jill what happened and lets it slip about the investigation. Jill demands the full story. Meredith eventually tells her, but Jill was like, she needs some distance from her. So Meredith was like, she'll go to her parents. She just feels so unlovable. Poor baby. So Tanner's sleeping by the fire after stripping off the sheets from the bed because he just smells Meredith everywhere. Someone was outside, and the dog starts barking and running after him. And then Tanner tries to chase the person down, but he can't catch him. The person hit the fucking dog because they had their lights off, but I think they would have did that with the lights on, to be honest. He couldn't get any information of what kind of vehicle or anything from it, but he picked his dog up, took him inside. He was hurt, but he could still walk. And it looked like someone had tried to cut, they had left the Swift Army knife, and they were clearly trying to cut his brakes. So he gathered the dog and left to go and try and keep Meredith safe. We switch to Jill's POV. She's all upset, crying. She can't believe her sister didn't tell her. Boom, boom, boom. There's a knock on the door. It's Tanner. She's like, "Why are you here?" He's like, "Open the door." Is Meredith here? She says, "No." And she's like, "Could Kenny or Barlow have her?" And he's like, "You know?" She's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Damn it." So he's like, "Call her, call your grandfather." Um, he's like, "Where is she?" She's like, "She's either at grandfather's or she's at our parents' house." So he's like, "Well, I'm gonna go to the parents' house." They called the grandfather, told him kind of what happened. He's gonna go check his brakes. They called the parents' house. Meredith answered. He asked her where her car was. She was like cold with him, but clearly she knew something was going on. So he's like, "I'm coming to check your car. You don't have to come to the door, but I'm coming to check." Jill, of course, was like, "How you gonna crush her and now you checking on her?" He's like, "Just because I crushed her doesn't mean I want her dead." That freaked her ass out. And now she's thinking like, "Oh, this is some serious shit." You know, she doesn't want her family to wind up like Jim or Ray. And I'm like, that's why they didn't fucking tell you. Because it is serious. You know? Good grief. So he goes over to where Meredith is at the parental. She's pissed. She's crying. It broke his heart to see her like that. He checked the brakes. The line hadn't been cut. The grandfather came over. He had already checked his. He's like, "I can check my own stuff. I just had a hard time getting up, you know." So the grandfather was like, "Tomorrow, I'm calling the attorney general. We've done more than enough. This is too much. This is now endangering my granddaughters." He's like, "That's it." Tanner was like, "Peggy's putting a rush on the results." Arthur said, "I don't care." He was like, "We have drawn enough strings that they should be able to pull them. You know, this has got to stop. You know." So then, what's her name? Meredith slammed the door. She's pissed, of course. And he was going to go to the door, and the grandfather stopped him. And he said, like, "I'm not going to let you hurt her no more." And Tanner made the comment, "Why do you think Richard Summerfield would print something about my brother if I was doing this willingly?" And he walked off. So then when she opened the door back up, the grandfather told her, "All is not lost." And she said she still felt like everything was lost. Next morning, grandfather comes into the office. He's like, "I thought we were leaving together." She's like, "I can take care of myself." And I'm like, "Girl, whatever." But anyway, he called the attorney general. They're going to send someone down from Denver. Hopefully they'll have the test results from Peggy. That'll just add to what they can give to the attorney general. So this is good. So then the grandfather asked, "Do you want to update Tanner or do you want me to?" She's like, "I'm not calling him." And he was like, "You might want to rethink that." And he gave her the article to read. She read it 3 times, and the grandfather said, "Why was he willing to work for somebody that's writing something about his brother that could hurt him?" So she, of course, was like, she can't figure it out. She's need to go. And the grandfather said, "You need to go ask questions." So Meredith gets this email from Gene, the coroner, saying, "I got the test results back. There's something here." She goes to get her grandfather. He's not there. He is interviewing a councilman. So she leaves a note on his desk and she takes her ass down there. And it's a fucking setup. Goddamn Kenny and Barlow. So they take her. They say they have Jill as well. And they wind up taking her to some killer pass. And basically they're going to create an avalanche. And so the drugs that they were getting, they were from Afghanistan, which is again how what caused Kenny ass to get discharged. And so he was suspected of it, but again, they didn't have, I guess, all the proof, so they did the whole bullshit discharge for him. So the weed that he's getting has an opium in it that's not really traceable. And that's why they had a better product than other people and why people kept coming for it quicker and quicker. But again, it was making folks sick. So anyway, he takes a picture, sends it to Tanner, and she realizes that they really are trying to like off all of them. Tanner, of course, is upset. No coffee this morning, no swimming. He puts the Swiss Army knife. He's sending that to his sister so she can run the prints on that. He gets a text message from Meredith. He, of course, goes. Kenny's there. Barlow has Meredith. They're doing their back and forth. They have put the explosions in the mountain so that it'll create an avalanche. So they have a snowmobile, Kenny and Barlow, so they can get out of there, but they're going to leave them there. So they left from there, and it was like 10, 15 minutes or something like that. They said when the explosion was going to go off. So she says there's a cave that we can climb to. Follow me. Jill runs into Brian on the street. He walks with her to the newspaper. Because she felt like something was going on. Arthur tells her that Meredith is missing. They call the station, and Arthur tells them that he just got a tip that Meredith and Barlow were taken. So now the sheriff's office was able to locate that they're in Killer Pass, and they head out. So he said that because he knew they'll find their own first, So I was like, that was smart. So Brian, of course, was staying with Jill. He told her, I'm not going anywhere. So Meredith, they're going up the mountain, and while they're climbing, Barlow and Kenny are like shooting at them to try and make them fall. So Meredith reaches the cave, and while she's pulling Tanner in, Tanner gets shot in the shoulder, but she's able to go ahead and pull him all the way in. He mouths to her, I love you. She says, I love you too. Tanner comes to. He's lost a lot of blood. She's cold because she stuck her jacket out on a stick so that way her grandfather, they could find him, because it's been the explosion has happened, so the avalanche done occurred. So they heard a snowmobile, and he was like, oh shoot, it's Kenny, because he was gonna like use himself as a decoy and try and jump out there so she could try and get away. I'm like, but they still would have got her. It wouldn't have been enough. So they both are like, no martyrs, we sticking together. Like, get that out your mind. So Meredith is in the hospital waiting on word about Tanner, because eventually they did hear a helicopter and stuff, so they got rescued. Peg is on her way, as well as Meredith's parents. She goes in to see him. He can barely talk, and before he goes unconscious, he says, file on his desk, David, and then Summerfield. So he goes out of consciousness, and then Peg arrives, and Jill is going to watch out for Keith. And Meredith, we find out, is going to confront Richard. She's finna fly back to New York. So Meredith goes up to Richard's townhouse. He's being all arrogant and cocky at first, but once he saw that she knew everything, he chilled out. She told him she had the negatives of him, and she'll trade them for the negatives of David, which is that's his name. I was never gonna remember. David, that's the name of Tanner's brother. So when Richard saw the pics that she had, he said, oh, you have more than I thought. So then he wanted to have a drink. He told her he didn't like the red hair. She said, well, I love it. He told her he was glad she didn't die in the avalanche. And then at that point, she was done. She had came there to do what she needed to do. She was ready to leave. She was ready to go back home. Jill is thinking of ideas, and they might include Brian. They have called a truce. Jill is thinking about doing something in the food arena, so that would include Brian. Arthur tells Peggy there's an opening in the sheriff's department in Dare Valley. She'll think about it. And Meredith comes back to a grouchy Tanner, and he's like, it's about time. So they talk about the trip, him being scared, that she wasn't going to come back. He gave her a gift which had a tank top that said MW and her grandmother's ring. So the grandfather wouldn't give the ring to Richard because he wasn't worthy of it. So this made her happy because this meant her family was fully behind her. They do the beautiful I love yous. and she's going to take over the paper. He's going to extend his teaching gig because he actually found out he liked it, because his style was to tell his old war stories, and the kids learned a lot from it. And he's also going to help out on the paper. And so the last bit in the what is it called, the epilogue, is just what her editorial was, which was their love story, and basically just her reclaiming back who she was as a person, realizing she was always enough. The bullshit that she was fed from Richard was just poison, that he did that to make her smaller, you know. But she's truly happy. She truly found the love of her life, and that is how it ends. Now, the other books in the series, like there's the next one that's about Jill and Brian. Peggy's got a story. There's like 12 books in this series. So everybody's got a story. So if you want to read anyone else's story, it is there. What did you all think? I really liked it. I did not expect those twists and turns. Just didn't see it coming. I really didn't. But what a surprise. A lot of action. You know, you had a good love story. You had some deceit going on from an ex, and oh my gosh, but it was good. I really liked it. Let me know what you guys think. Drop that in the comment section. I did not mean to make this video so long, but it was just a lot that happened, and I still left out a lot. Make sure you like and subscribe and share. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the links are going to be available down in the description section. As always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.